G'day, welcome back. This is the next video in my series on World Chess Championship blunders. And now we've moved on to one of the totally classic World Chess Championships, the one between Botvinnik and Tal. Now, the thing about this match is it's well known for being very exciting, with lots of sacrifices by Tal, which sort of broke through and he became the World Chess Champion. There are a few blunders, but it's not quite as exciting from the blunder perspective, and in some cases it's a bit difficult to disentangle Tal taking Botvinnik into a dark forest and sort of provoking the blunders by putting intense pressure on Botvinnik versus actual blunders. So without further ado, let's quickly go to my capture screen. Just very quickly look at the Wikipedia page for starters. World Chess Championship 1960, there's Botvinnik and Tal there. You can see that it was a fairly comfortable win to Tal in the end, 12.5, 8.5. We'll have a look at my chart in a second. And Tal really stormed the barricades here. You can see in the interzonal tournament, he just won that. A few familiar names there: Gligorik, Petrosian, Benko, Olafsson, and Bobby Fischer in his first candidates. After qualifying, get to candidates. You have Tal won by a point and a half from Keres, Petrosian, Smyslov, Gligorik, Fischer, Olafsson, the stateless Tal Benko. So that's how Tal qualified for the match, and we'll go through these games. There's infamous game number 6 there. We're going to look at games 6 because of the, Tal did one of his amazing sacrifices and Botvinnik had chances to refute it, and game 17 as well. And on top of that, we are going to look at game number 12. So three games. Here's Wikipedia. So here's the capture screen, and top right chart, you can see there Tal is in the red, and this is one of the games where you get to 12.5 points to win. And you can see he just sort of basically streaked away, got in front early on, and maintained his lead, like a 4-point margin in the end, fairly comfortable. And so let's have a look at a few of these games. First one I want to look at, move that other way, is a game number 6, very famous game. It's got a very famous Tal sacrifice in it, which Botvinnik survived. Let's have a look. So we'll go back to before Tal's amazing sacrifice. So at this stage, Tal played knight to f4, which is a pretty fancy piece of sacrifice. Must have horrified Botvinnik. He's trying to avoid this sort of stuff. They take the knight, take back, and actually, I don't want to go full detail. This is where Botvinnik had the alternative a3, pushing the black queen. Was supposed to be better than bishop to d2. Tal returned the compliment. Queen takes b2 is not supposed to be best, and Botvinnik plays the right move, rook to b1, which is it's kind of an interesting move because the bishop's obviously covering that square, but now with the bishop covering that, if Tal takes the rook, Botvinnik will take back, and queen will go to c2. It's supposed to be a little bit better for white. Tal now throws in a second sacrifice, which is kind of it's not according to the engine, is not a correct sacrifice. And now we're getting to the final thing, the final blunder. The way to play here is supposed to be just bishop takes f3. We'll go down that line just to see what should have been played. Takes f3. So now black does take the rook, takes back, and queen c2. There's a couple of lines there, but let's say queen c2, bishop to e4, and kind of holding. That's supposedly the continuation, which gives white a pretty decent advantage. Black's king is quite unsafe actually in that check. Don't be smothered, mate. So it looks like white's winning mainly because of the strong d pawn. He'll be able to push through. However, take this position here after this f3 second sacrifice. Let's say confusing Botvinnik. Botvinnik just took Tal's queen, so now black can take white's queen, and it's a very threatening pawn on second rank. Continue the rook d4, attacking the bishop, check, attacking the rook, and this is basically +3 to black at this stage. As I don't want to go into full details here. Black is winning with his strong bishops, and he's picked off a few of the extra pawns. So like +5 now. Black's dominating the position. I'm not qualified to cover this game, but this rook takes b2 was a mistake. White should have just taken the pawn on it. So enough said about that game. Let me move on to a game number 12 now. Okay, there it's set up. This position is an interesting double blunder. You can see around about move 30. Let's move to that position and see what was going on. 6 is the last move. And it does have a threat in some ways, but it looks fairly standard. White can do almost anything. The position's even. Although White has an extra pawn with major pieces on, it's unlikely White will be able to do too much with it. Now, White can play any number of moves here: Rook A2, Queen B2, Queen B4, a whole bunch of moves which are even. The move he plays is perhaps the only move he should not play. Rook F1. Okay, so I think it's good. We haven't done a little study for a while. Have a look at this position and see what the winning continuation for Black is. Black did not play the winning move. Black played Rook to E1. Had a blunder and another blunder, and then now it's just going on. And Rook's eventually going to be taken, and the game continues. Okay, so let's go back to the key position. See the winning move there is doubling up on H file. So the threat is pretty clearly just to pound through on the H2 square, and there is very little which can be done. I think the first thing we have to say is, what if we take the rook? The continuation here, you check, being in the corner, check, pawn's trapped. You can see this was the mistake of moving the rook into F1. King gets trapped by its own pieces. And now we can go G take H4, and there's no defense down the G file now, even though check. Unfortunately, the queen goes there. Doesn't even get the rook back. Totally lost in that position. And there's not much else to do. Let's try another line. Queen C7. We just take it. There's going to be no defenses here. It's interesting that actually this line makes a lot of sense. Swapping off queens. Very good. Yeah. And probably a couple of continuations here, but this is probably the simplest one. Pick up the rook. So that was an interesting one. It was a double blunder. Anyway, now the last game we're going to look at today is the game number 17, which was also on the Wikipedia page. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, here we are. You can see the game start there, and about move 36, 37, you can see Botvinnik blundered from a drawn position. And then, okay, so let's go back and move. You can see Tal is attacking once again. Kind of a balanced position. Computer says it's fairly even. Black has an extra 2 pawns, but it seems very difficult for him to unravel. So Tal played Queen to B3. There's a couple of lines. Have a look at this position. Consider should do. There's one main move which survives. Botvinnik played, which does not survive. We've looked at it. The drawing line, by the way, is King A8. King A8 seems to hold. It gets away from all the different tactics which are flying. Anyway, Black plays Queen to D5. Now have a look. The winning line is. There's only one winning move, but boy, is it. Okay, so it is, as you should expect. I mean, this square is well covered. Can't do anything there, but we just sacrifice on A6. Now, 2 lines I'll discard quickly, which I haven't. If you take it with the king, variation, there's various checkmates. And if you take back with the pawn, variation, check. Nice checkmate pattern there. That was the shortest way of doing it. So back to the game continuation. King drops back. Fair enough. Looks okay. What's going to happen now? So it is Queen to A3. Was actually played, and Black is just getting cut to pieces. Let's do a sample continuation. Okay, so Black has a few choices. The threat here is just checking the king on the A8 square, the king getting driven out and cut to pieces. Obviously, you've got check here and check on that diagonal. So let's just have a look at a few possible moves. Maybe trying to press the B5 and B6 as both being suggested. Let's try B6, see what happens in that variation. Then let's check here. back here. King keeps on running, then we hit these lines. King's not getting away. So this queen a5 check. There's a typical continuation. Right? Go through all lines. So that's kind of what happens if you push the pawn. So maybe you can push to b5 so that rook move doesn't work. So in that case, queen a5 threatening to take the pawn with the rook, which would now be checkmate. And the best the computer is giving, just taking the pawn there. Which is in fact at this position one of the other lines the computer is suggesting, but in which case you just take the rook. You're winning on material now anyway. This has the advantage of now the king gets away, but spin it to the queen. Spin it to the king. Right? So that was a disaster. And after the simple move queen a4, Botvinnik, like, just resigned. So what do we have there? We have 3 blunders by Botvinnik, and it's Botvinnik doesn't normally blunder like that, so you can imagine that the pressure that Tal, always presenting challenges, always sacrificing pieces, is kind of what caused that sort of blunder. You can see that actually these ones, there's I've got to change it. There's a couple of them by Botvinnik, and Botvinnik's got one more out there. So that's kind of where I am with the tiers. I've got quite a nice lineup now of 4-star blunders, and you can see these really, didn't affect the match overall because Tal was fairly comfortably the better player. So where does that leave us now? We've got Tal is the world champion after that victory, and he will be playing in a rematch in 1961, where Botvinnik comes back perhaps better prepared for his attacking style. Great. Thank you very much for watching.